Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we are finally going to be talking about the debut album from Kali Uchis called Isolation. I was genuinely surprised with how many people were requesting that I cover this album. Well, okay, maybe not that surprised. Many people know her for her Grammy-nominated collaboration with Daniel Caesar, Get You, but I was more familiar with her name going a little bit further back, mostly through her connections to Tyler, the Creator, and do a little bit deeper into her featuring credits, and I've seen her name come up a fair bit associated with acts like Gorillaz or Miguel, and when I've reviewed their albums, I don't recall saying anything all that bad about her specifically, and going back to those collaborations, well, the weakest might have been Carmelo Duo with Miguel, but she did a great job with She's My Caller with Gorillaz, and even better opposite Tyler, the Creator on See You Again. She sounded great on that song, and that was enough to at least get me kind of intrigued to do a little bit more research into where she was going to take this full-length debut album. Reportedly, her mixtapes pulled on a broader cross-section of sounds, spanning doo-wop, retro-pop, jazz, bossa nova, R&B, and of course reggaeton given her Colombian heritage. And considering the massive amount of critical acclaim that she's received for this breakout album, and if you dig into a lot of the liner notes, you'll see a lot of impressive names ranging from Thundercat and Bad Bad Not Good to Damon Albarn and Kevin Parker of Tame Impala. And that's even before you get to the list of the who's who of big name producers like Greg Kurstin down to Soundwave. So alright, I'm intrigued by this. I want to see where this is going. So what do we get on Isolation? Oh god, I'm not gonna make any fans with this review. And you know, it's funny. Just a few days ago, I was getting comments on my Cardi B review how I tend to overpraise debut albums in order to hop on the bandwagon. And if I want the most searing indictment of how that's never really held water, it's Isolation by Kali Uchis, because I didn't really care for this much at all. Now don't get me wrong, it's not bad, and I understand why it's getting so much praise, although I can definitely see this falling in line with a lot of overpraised, mainstream adjacent R&B debuts that are forgotten very quickly by those same critics in coming years. But across the board, this record just did not resonate with me beyond just feeling kinda decent. It's okay. And considering I gave this nearly 10 listens in order to grip me on some level, that's a real problem. And you know what, we're gonna have to start with Kali Uchis herself, and let me start by saying I really get why so many critics have found her such a compelling presence behind the microphone, because she does at least seem like she can handle a pretty impressive breadth of styles and sounds, from the subtler crooning of R&B and soul to the languid breathy coos of retro pop, from more assertive and sultry reggaeton to the dreamy electronic grooves you would hear on a Gorillaz album like Humans. Hell, In My Dreams might as well fit in that mold. In her contrast to Damon Albarn's monotone, it's easily the most compelling track on the album. I really liked it. And that's the thing. She can definitely sing. With the right delicate cushions of multi-tracking and overdubs, she can sound really damn pretty and sultry doing so. She can hit those whistle tones. But more of this record slips towards a much more languid, almost hip-hop inspired swagger that might succeed in projecting more confidence if she didn't keep slipping off the note and sounding kind of flat. I get that it's an affectation that calls back to more old school jazz and that more organic feel, but just let's put away the comparisons to Billie Holiday or even Amy Winehouse here. There was a temperance of grit in their voices that gave their material an edge. Whereas with Kali Uchis, even if she faced conditions just as desperate growing up, or even more so, I'm sorry, the gravitas does not come through nearly as strong. And that's kind of a problem given the record's lyrics and themes. And again, I'll give Kali Uchis all the points in the world for rising above music industry handlers and carving out her own image and lane and careening across genres and styles. And songs like Miami do a good enough job placing all that in context. In a city of overblown hedonism, she wants to be the one in charge, to be Kanye instead of Kim. This is a riskier route for her to take, and I respect that. And this theme of chasing that hustle interweaves their dreamlike wishes for a real relationship, all which are framed as being very much doomed in some variety. Flight 22 is probably the most straightforward love song on the album, and it's a flight references from a doomed plane collision in 1967. Tyrant raised the question of once the honeymoon period ends, whether or not this guy will then exploit her like so much of the music industry has tried, and even the brighter yearnings of In My Dreams is punctured by Damon Albarn's acknowledgement that those dreams will eventually end. They don't reflect reality. Now again, I get the emotional headspace where her self-reliance and natural distrust of manipulation comes through from songs like Miami and Your Teeth in My Neck, juxtaposed against the yearning for true affection, even if the rational part of her mind will expect the worst. This all makes sense for the character she's trying to put forward. I get that. But for the final two songs, the record pivots into this guy either cheating or being abusive against increasingly lush and layered production, hitting the worst possible answer and really proving her right. And while the bluntness of the writing captures the severity of the situation, her delivery just doesn't really sell the gravity or those deeper, darker stakes. Hell, the closest she ever gets to this territory is Tomorrow, but even that sense of danger feels kinda muted when you realize part of this is an interpolation of a Sublime song, and a big part of this is a lack of deeper lyrical nuance. I get that a record like this is relying more on vocal personality in order to sell the points, but when you factor in how quickly she flits across styles and characters, especially on the retro tones of Feel Like a Fool, where you'd think that the Kali Uchis of Dead to Me or even After the Storm would have dumped this cheating ass, it feels less like intriguing diversity or complexity and more just scattered inconsistencies in between songs on the record. And when you couple it with rhyme schemes that are just dropped without any good reason and some real technical issues, the broad strokes of a lot of this writing means that while the ending does make some thematic sense and a really downbeat note to end things, it winds up just adding up like less than the sum of its parts. Just kinda shallow. I wanted some deeper context to anchor that drama, and it's not really here. But hey, surely with how lush and diverse the production is, that'd be enough to elevate and sell this album, right? Well, aside from surrendering any sort of consistent feeling of flow, and songs like the Coming Home interlude blatantly clash for little apparent reason, it sounds like two fragments smashed together, and they've called that out. I found myself really wishing I can dig into more of these songs more than I do. Again, I like old school vibes. I like the elements of retro pop and jazz and funk and R&B that this record is pulling on, but nearly all of these pieces, they're just this one instrumental element that doesn't help the overall cohesive sound, especially when it's paired with bass grooves and organic elements that deserve a lot better. There are some great grooves on this album. You can dance to it, but beyond that, like take Just a Stranger. It's probably the catchiest song here, featuring Steve Lacy from the internet. That's what you get when you get a producer from Brockhampton behind the boards. But like with most mid-tier Brockhampton, the atonal synth and guitar choices just did not click for me opposite her smoother vocal tone. Dead to Me almost reminds me of a Janelle Monáe cut in the vocal layering and the elegant funk. The overdubs sound great, but that flat synth choice just completely neutered a lot of the vibe. A good song, but it could have been great. A wonky synth choice doesn't help the by-the-numbers reggaeton of Nuestro Planeta, and when you get Kevin Parker's blocky, moaning keyboards against the painfully thin guitars on Tomorrow, you know what, for a song explicitly referencing teen girls forced into prostitution, the tone might be playing for that darker territory, but none of that weight or edge comes through in all the misty crooning. And that tonal dissonance between the content, the delivery, the instrumentation, it's sadly pretty consistent across this project, and it seems to be kind of intentional from Kali Uchis in order to emphasize some of that sarcastic vibe in the writing, a sarcasm that's rarely delivered all that effectively in the vocal line and never really in the production, especially when all the retro tones, they fit better with genuine sincerity. I'm still not all that much of a fan of the drippy textures across this album, or how the rickety skitter of the percussion on Miami sounded so damn cheap, but when this record has its more earnest moments, even if it's shaded by potential darkness, like the elegance assisted by the Dap Kings on Flight 22, or the excellent synth interplay on In My Dreams, I get songs that I really like. It's one reason why I actually like the flute-touched bassy funk on Body Language assisted by Thundercat, as well as After the Storm, which plays into this empowerment with loose funk, incredibly charming Bootsy Collins ad-libs, and a great balanced verse from Tyler the Creator. Even if it is just trying, it works out pretty well. But as a whole, okay, look, Kali Uchis has said in interviews that the reason this debut took so long is that she wanted to make the record she wanted, not succumbing to label direction, because this is not a safe album. I can recognize that. And you can definitely tell that she made the record she wants to make, and while she's clearly won over an audience and a lot of critics with this, I'm sorry, I'm not all that convinced. The writing's average at best, her vocals, while varied to fit her production, don't always reflect her strengths, and said production seems to keep compromising its promising foundational elements for this languid, gauzy vibe that does nothing for any sense of momentum or deeper organic presence. In short, with many of these rough edges, it feels very much like a debut album. Maybe if she's willing to tighten things back up, I'd be willing to come back to it, but for me, extremely light 6 out of 10, tentative recommendation at best. If it wasn't for In My Dreams, that score would be a fair bit lower. And look, I can respect Kali Uchis' hustle to make it this far on her own, and while it didn't really resonate with me, she's got an audience that'll probably enjoy it, so keep that in mind. And if you're curious, it's worth a listen, I guess, but don't be surprised if you don't hear much from her in the next couple of years if she doesn't get that big crossover smash. We've been down this road before, just warning you. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I know I'm a little bit more downbeat on this than I want to. Folks, I really wanted to like this. It just did not click with me, and I'm being honest there. You want to buy it though, links down there below. Polls there for y'all to tell me how wrong I am. I'm expecting it. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process, link to my Patreon is right over there, where 3 times a week you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even a top 10 list to that schedule. Just a friendly reminder to all my patrons, the tier structure has changed from per video to per month. So please get in and change your tiers depending on what you want there, because that's a pretty major shift. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do, I'm happy to do it. Then there in my description is where I'm posting my schedule. It's on my Instagram. Take a look if you're curious. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.